Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 212. This episode is going to air about March 16th, 17th, I believe. Don, you just got in off the road. I've been finishing up consulting season. It's been a crazy week.
Yeah, I've been on the road for 9 days and just rolled in this evening. And I'll tell you what, I'm ready to sleep in my own bed. I was out, started in Ohio. And then I went to Delaware, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, back to Ohio, and home. And this old boy is beat.
Yeah, you don't sleep very well in hotels anyway, but that long of a stint, I can assure everyone that it's hard to get good rest when you're walking as much as consulting season makes us go. Trying to give the attention to our customers that we want to give, and then not being able to sleep at night. It makes it tough.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got the best motel story you're going to hear.
Okay.
So I was in Pennsylvania, I don't know what it was, 2-3 nights ago, and pulled off the interstate, and there was really, it wasn't a town, it was just a bunch of restaurants and stuff right there at the exit. And there was 3 motels. There was a Hampton Inn, a Best Western, and a Super 8. So I start with the Hampton Inn. No, I started at Best Western. It was $189 a night. So I thought, I can do better than that. I called the Hampton. They wanted $399 a night for that, the Hampton. Like, you got to be kidding me. So I called the Super 8. The Super 8 was like $68. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the Super 8. So I get over there, and this place, it looks like it was probably in its heyday back in the 1980s or something. Real sketch-looking place. It was on the outskirts of all these other businesses, woods around it, interstate on one side, and it looked like half of the rooms had been abandoned. It had been a big motel at one time, but half the rooms had been abandoned, and some of the rooms looked like they had people living in them. They had little grills outside the doors. It was one of them motels that the doors are on the outside, which my wife refuses to stay in those, but not me. I'll do anything to save $1. So I'm in this shack of a motel, and I'm laying there in bed asleep, and I knew I better take my gun into this place. I mean, it looked really shady. So I'm laying there asleep, 4 a.m. I got my gun there on the nightstand, and all of a sudden, somebody is beating the crap out of my door, like not knocking on the door. It's like they're going to knock it down, and they're hollering something. And I wake up out of a sound sleep, jump up out of bed in my underwear, grab my gun, and start screaming at them like, "Who is it? What do you want?" And they said, "It's the police. Open up. It's the police." I don't remember if it was the local police or the state police or whatever. And I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it was the police at all. So I'm in my underwear with my gun in my hand, my pistol in my hand. And I go to look out the window, and there's a cop looking back at me.
Oh, no.
And I look him in the eye. He can tell I just woke up. And then I stick my head against the glass, and I look over towards the door of my room, and I see another one. There's 2 police officers in uniform, and I'm still trying to decide if they're real or if they're just, they're trying to get in my room. Because, they literally was trying to beat the door down. And I said, hold on, let me get some clothes on. So I put my clothes on, and I looked out the window again. I put my gun down, but this time, the last thing I want to do is get shot. And so I look out the window again. I can see these 2 cops, and I open the door, and they're both one of them's hiding on each side of the door. You know, it's like they don't know if I'm coming out with a gun or what. And they said, let's see your hands. And I had my hands out in front of me like this. And then they come around the corner in front of me and they said, can we come in? And I'm like, what's this about? And they said, well, there's been an armed robbery in the area and the robber fled to this motel and we're looking for him. I'm like, well, he ain't here. But so there actually was a third cop hiding outside too. And I said, yeah, you can come on in. I don't care if you want to look and see if he's in here. He's not here. So I sit on the end of the bed, and these three cops surrounded me, so I couldn't go anywhere, and started taking down this is 4 a.m. I mean, I was sound asleep 3 minutes earlier, and they started taking down my info. They wanted to see my driver's license, and they wanted my cell phone number, and this and that, and finally they decided. They said, well, you don't fit the description of the robber. Yeah, I can only imagine. 60-year-old white guy that just got out of bed. I don't imagine I'd probably look like much for a robber.
What state were you in?
I think it was Pennsylvania.
They didn't say anything about you having your gun?
No, they didn't say a word. And the thing of it is, it was laying right there on top of the dresser when they came in, and the one cop looked right at it. He's seen it. He's the cop that was at the window. And he's seen it sitting there. They never said a word about it the whole time. But then they wanted to show me. They showed me video footage of the guy robbing the place, and they wanted to know if I recognized him. And the thing of it was, the guy had a big parka on, and he had a hood on over his head, and it was one of them hoods, that sticks out in front of your face about 6 inches. You couldn't even see the guy's nose, let alone his eyes or anything. You couldn't even see his face. You couldn't even tell what color the guy was because he had gloves on too. Yeah, I'm going to recognize that dude. I'm 3 states away from home, and I'm going to recognize a guy that you can't even see his face.
Well, I'm guessing after that excitement, you probably didn't go back to bed or get much sleep after that, did you?
Well, I laid there for probably 2 hours till right before my alarm went off, and then I fell asleep, and boom. You know how it goes. So
Don in his tidy whities with a pistol in his hand with 3 cops out his door. If we could have gotten security footage of that would have made a great thumbnail for this episode.
I'll tell you what, they beat on that door so hard. If they would have just knocked, it wouldn't probably. It scared the crap out of me. I was sound asleep, and I thought somebody was coming through that door. I thought they was knocking it down. And I'll tell you what, if they would have, they'd had a gun staring right in their face. But
I was in a hotel in Cleveland one time, and literally some dude scanned, I think it was a Holiday Inn Express. Some guy, literally, the front desk mixed up the room number on their card. And he flat out walked right into my room thinking it was him, his suitcase and everything. And that got a little awkward real quick.
I bet.
I was working on my computer at the desk, luckily. And it was, I'm glad it wasn't at 4 a.m. beating on the door, though.
Remember the time we was down at the ATA show in, I think it was Louisville. And right outside the motel, you was the only one armed at that time. And I thought you was going to have to pull it out, and that guy was.
Dr. Shipley was with us, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was. It was Dr. Shipley, you and me.
It was a guy who was higher than a kite, homeless dude, started like running at us and spitting at us. And I put Dr. Shipley behind us, and we backed into the room, and I had my hand on the.
Yeah.
I was, and that hotel even had an armed security guard at the door. If you remember right, when we got him, he ran out. But that's the closest I've ever had, thank goodness. I hope I'm never in a situation where I have to pull it out. But I remember Dr. Shipley didn't even know what was going on. We put him behind us and got him in the hotel real quick.
Yeah. Motel stories.
Motel stories. I've had the best consulting season I've ever had this year. You talk about great people, unbelievable farms, but I'll be honest with you, this coming weekend is my last weekend, and I'm ready. I only take a few jobs because of how busy I am, and still working with a couple of last year's clients because they had logging done, and we're working on those final steps of those properties. But I tell you what, I am flat exhausted. I don't know how Wes does it with as many as he does, and he's a lot younger than us, but maybe I could have done it when I was that age, but I'm spent.
I totally get it. I'm the same way. This trip is my longest trip of the year. It's only 9 days, and Wes is on one right now. I think for 17 days. But
17. He left from the dealer meeting
yeah, he did.
and was going to be going.
All right.
So
I'm probably going to end up with about 50 some visits this year. But there was 2 years in a row that I did over 80, and I don't understand how I did over 80. But this winter I had a lot more speaking engagements than I did those years. On this trip, I had two. One in out in Delaware for Eastern Outdoors, our distributor out there. That was last Saturday. Great event, great turnout, and a lot of good questions and stuff from people. And then, what was it, 2 nights ago, I was at Fredonia, Pennsylvania, John Allen Byler's, and great crowd there. There's probably 300 people came out for that one as well. So
one of his customers, Mr. Byler's customers that lives out there, I was on his hunting property today in Kentucky. So he owns land over here in a cabin, and I went and walked that one. And but yeah, pretty full trip. 2 great events. I even saw that you had another kind of training visit, or your newest consultant followed you around. You can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Caleb Gaiman from Eastern Outdoors, one of the partners in that distributorship out there, has been with me on 2 different trips, probably about a dozen properties in 4 or 5 states this winter. And we're going to get him set up to consult in the Northeast. So I'm working with him. Like some of these last properties, he's doing the plan. I'm doing the plan for the client, but he's doing a plan for me to look over and critique. And by next year, he'll be ready to roll. In fact, he's ready to roll right now, I think.
Yeah, you did the same for us, and making sure that we're following the pathway that, your logo and your name is on these plans. They're a Higgins plan. And you want to make sure the integrity of how you want the representation of all of us that are working underneath of you is always going to be there. So it's good for all of us to shadow underneath of you for a while before we go out and do it. And then obviously you have to approve the plans. So you've had quite a stack of them to mail out here over the last couple of weeks, though. This is probably the busiest with all of the consultants that we've had.
Yeah, I've been mailing out a stack of them. It's 18 inches to 24 inches tall every Monday. And since I missed this Monday, the stack that's going to go out after this weekend, in fact, that's what I was doing before we started recording, was reviewing some of the plans that you guys had sent to me. And I'll get that done this weekend, and they'll go out Monday. But there's going to be a major stack. I don't think I'm going to get them all in my mailbox this week. So Stephen, the mailman, will have to stop by the house.
He might have to come pick up the stack of plans in his new skid loader.
There you go.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and listen to Ossie. I want to come back and talk about the Legends Roundtable, the video posted earlier this week. And I have an idea I'm going to pitch to you on the podcast, and be back in just a minute to talk about that.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. Osseo has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
Okay, Don. Thanks to the folks at Osseo. We want to thank and we appreciate Joe Miles. Got a lot cooking with him, a lot of new ideas, and can't wait to share those in the coming weeks. But we're working really hard from a business to business standpoint to really do business in this industry the right way. I think it really hit me hard at the Legends Roundtable when we talked about the next generation and the role models and the stewardship and the woodsmanship. I think there's just as much responsibility for us to set the example, not only in the woods or with our trophy pictures, but also how we want to do business and work with other companies, and who we choose, how we choose to work with them, how we work with them. And that's why, we keep talking about the guys behind the brands, the Chris Yateses, the Joe Mileses, the Jay Gingriches, the Nick Carpenters. The list goes on and on, all the way. Mark Fisher at 360, all of these people. We want to set the example for all the people that want to do this kind of stuff, to do it the right way. And I think Joe is perfectly in line with following that kind of structure also.
Yeah, we're working on something pretty big with Joe for later this year. And, one of the questions we got tonight is going to be basically about being blessed. And, Real World has been absolutely, the growth has been phenomenal. We had our best week ever, the week of the dealer event. Dwayne told me that they shipped out 267 pallets that week. Some of those were picked up, a good portion of them were picked up at the dealer event, but there was a lot of them that were shipped out too. So you think about 267 pallets in 1 week, that's a lot of pallets.
Well, and what it's doing is, we talked about this at the dealer event. I could put a marketing campaign together to go after e-commerce orders, and we could cheapen the product and bury the freight inside the product to where the shipping cost was low. But we're refusing to jeopardize the integrity of the quality, and we really feel the best thing to do is to help grow the brands of our dealers. Obviously, people can buy online, but we're trying to circle around the shipping cost problem with the raising of inflation. And the way we do that's through dealers. And that was the big theme of our whole dealer event, is how to make those dealers successful. And when you talk about being blessed, Real World has been absolutely blessed. And our goal as a company is now to bless all of our dealers and help them grow their businesses to impact their community. And in the end, hopefully our customers are getting the product at cheaper because they don't have to pay shipping. It's trying to be a win for everybody in this thing.
Mm-hmm. And the request for new dealer packets has just been unbelievable this year. And we set up a dealer in Canada, so the Canada dealer is actually at the dealer event. Right. We've got a couple new ones in Texas. Just all kinds of places where we had very little exposure in the past. It's growing across the board, and I chalk it up to the people around me. It's not me. It's the people that make the company run and look good, and the fact that we're blessed.
Yep.
We try to do the right thing, treat people the way we want to be treated. And,
but that was the big theme of what we wanted to do, is give the tools to our dealers and help them grow. We're not a normal company and not trying to grow like a normal company, and I think we've been blessed by that. The Legends Roundtable video went ahead. I thought it was going to be a little bit later that would be released, but they ended up getting it edited, and the promoters of the event approved going ahead and releasing that. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch it on YouTube on the Chasing Giants with Higgins Outdoors page, the same as where this podcast is released. I believe it went up on Wednesday and has had just a ton of positive comments from it. The only negative thing I've heard after that event is that it needed to be longer. And we could have dove into a lot more, but I think Derek and the promoters of the event have some plans to adapt and move forward and listen to what the attendees want, and planning has already started for next year.
Yeah, and I agree with everybody. It was too short. Even sitting up there on the stage, it seemed like we just got started and it was over. So
when I give Gene 2 minutes to introduce himself and 12 minutes later he still hadn't said his name yet, It's like telling your grandpa to be quiet, you know. I was more stressed out about that event than anything I have ever done. And I've spoken in front of a lot of big crowds and done a lot of presentations. And I was more stressed out about that event and my role in it than I have anything I've ever done.
Yeah, I wasn't stressed out much, but I'll just say that with friends like Barry Wenzel, I don't need enemies because.
Well, you know, I took it pretty serious because most of the people my age or younger don't even know who Bobby Worthington is or the Wenzel brothers or never read a book by Al Foster. And, you know, I told you and Joe Miles, I said, and before we went out there, I said, just an FYI, if anybody gets cut short of mic time, it's going to be you two because you both have podcasts. These guys, I looked at this opportunity to connect a whole new generation with the pioneers of the sport of mature buck hunting. And I just hope that everybody goes out and watches that. And I have this idea, we haven't talked about this, but I think for all of our Amish and Mennonite and GB friends that listen on MTech, I'm pretty sure that we can put the audio at the end of this podcast that's airing right now, so the folks that can't watch YouTube can listen to it. And that's going to make this episode probably about 2.5 hours when we upload it. But I'm going to try to do that. So stick around to the end of the show. If it's not there, I'll give you an update on next episode. But I'm pretty sure we need to check with everybody. But I'm pretty sure we can put that audio out there so that the folks on MTech can listen to it.
Well, there's been a lot of people ask about it, so
Yep.
You know, I'm sure that it's going to be well received if you can do that.
Yep. So stay tuned to the end of this show, and I'll try my best to have it on there. If not, we'll have a plan for the next episode on where you'll be able to find it. But it is on video form on YouTube right now on the Chasing Giants with Higgins Outdoors page, so go check that out. One other thing before we move on, we got a lot of questions we want to get to tonight. I had ticks on me today. We were walking through the woods. There was no greenery. You know, some of the ferns had started to grow on the forest floor. Very small, like the multiflora rose and autumn olive. They had little buds on them, but nothing big. And I got back to the house today, and I had 3 of those little bitty mini ticks crawling on me. And spring is here.
Yeah, it's definitely an early spring this year. I was in Ohio today, and the greenbrier and the multiflora rose is starting to bloom and leaf out, actually. But, you know, what was it, 2 days? 2 days before, I was in New York in the snow. That picture I posted today of Caleb and I in the snow, that was just 2 days ago in New York.
Wow.
So, big difference in, you know, a couple hundred miles.
The last 3 days down here, I think it's been in the 70s. So it's we need to mow our yard. It's already time to mow our yard outside. So,
well, my dad was out on his new mower.
Yeah,
he was so anxious to get that mower and mow his yard. He mowed it and didn't even need it. And here's how bad it was, Terry. This is not a joke. He's out there mowing his yard, and he hasn't even turned the blades on, and he gets halfway done, and he realizes he hasn't even turned the blades on. So
this is the quietest mower I've ever been on.
Yeah.
Turn the deck on.
He's a mowing Nazi. He goes around town just mowing people's yards just because he likes to mow. So that new mower is probably going to have 7 years of use the first summer.
Well, when I first started at Cornerstone, Don called me and said, "Hey, do you sell Bad Boy mowers? My dad wants one." And we ended up hauling him up one I think it was during hunting season, because I put it on a trailer, and you met me over at the farm and took the trailer and then brought it back to me with some pallets of feed on it. So I hope he's happy with it, because I'll have to come all the way up there and show him how to use it if he's not happy. So.
Oh, he's happy. Believe me.
That suspension seat's going to be a whole lot better on his back.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to our first question of the night. I think you picked out 6. I want to make sure we leave time for those. And again, try to stay tuned to the end if you want to listen to the Legends Roundtable. We'll try to get the audio at the end of this episode.
All right, the first question comes from John Kessinger from Perrysburg, Ohio. Says, hey, Don and Terry, love the podcast and all you guys are doing for the hunting community. My question is about switchgrass. I've got about a 130-acre piece of property in northwest Ohio I'm managing with about 60 to 75% of the property in floodplain. We decided a couple of years ago to take our largest field, which is about 12 acres, and plant that in switchgrass. This entire field is in the floodplain. This was before I knew about real-world switchgrass, so take that into consideration. About 60% of the switchgrass came up really well, and the remaining didn't take, as we suspect the seed got drowned out during a flash flood that year. Now that it has been 2+ years, I wanted to ask what the best course of action would be. Do we burn the whole thing and start over, or work up just the areas it didn't grow and try again and replant? Take into consideration we want to plant miscanthus clusters and some eastern red cedars in this field this year as part of our greater plan. Thanks again for all the wealth of knowledge and experience you guys are willing to share. Well, John, what I would do is burn it like you mentioned. After you burn it, spray atrazine to prevent a lot of weeds. Go in and put your miscanthus out there, and then drill right on top of that miscanthus. I wouldn't worry about killing the stuff that's already there. Just no-till right over the top of what you got now, and you should get a good stand that way. The thing that I want to point out, though, is your idea of eastern red cedars in that switchgrass is a terrible idea. The fire is just going to kill them trees. These whole diversity pocket nonsense that's out there. If you need to burn that switchgrass, and burning fires and diversity pockets of wooded cover just don't mix very well. I tried it years ago, and I used big burlap trees. I was using 2-inch caliper oak trees, big burlap trees like you would buy at a landscape center, and trying to create some structure in a switchgrass field. And first attempt, I killed them all with the first fire. So I went back in and I did it again, and now about half of those died as well. But when I burn that particular field now, I go in with my tractor and mower, and I'll mow the switchgrass down all around those trees, and probably in about a 50-foot diameter circle around them, just to keep the fire down. Eastern red cedar, you're going to burn those things up. You're wasting your time and your money to try to put them out there. The miscanthus is a great idea, however, but just follow what I said. Burn it, spray it, no-till or plant the miscanthus, and then no-till the seed, and you should get a good stand.
All right, so I got a question for you. This is our good friend Kevin Miller. You know Kevin, he's been to the master classes, but so he wants to put in a switchgrass field with a Miscanthus X to make some structure inside of it. His local dealer has a bulk shipment of miscanthus coming in at a certain date, but he's not sure he's going to have the switchgrass field ready to plant within a week or two window of when the miscanthus comes in, and they don't think they have a refrigerator big enough for the bulk bag. Would he be okay going ahead and planting his miscanthus now and then spraying over top of it about 2 weeks later, or do you really need to do all of it at the same time?
So what's holding him up from getting that field ready now?
I don't know.
It just needs to green up so he can spray it?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on.
Well, then, yeah, he should go ahead and put that miscanthus in the ground. It's going to take it, probably close to a month before it comes up and breaks the surface of the soil. And the glyphosate or whatever he's going to spray, it's not going to hurt it whatsoever.
Okay. Well, you just saved me from having to type him a long answer on a text message, so I'll just time to listen to the episode on Sunday. So You're welcome, Kevin. So we'll move on to the next question. Oh, by the way, hey, before I forget, guess what happened today? I had to take cover from a tornado again. We had tornadoes. Really? We had tornadoes come through, and I was driving back from Eastern Kentucky, and an alert came across my phone, and I was just happened to pass through a town, and the the horn was going off. So I must have a way of just attracting these storms everywhere I go. Unbelievable.
Well, don't bring them up here. We don't need any of that.
Well, I was just thinking, my Duramax is getting ready to go back to Chris Yates. Of course, something would happen, and I'd either get it stuck or get it in a tornado just a couple weeks before it has to go back.
Well, I hope Chris isn't listening. Well, actually, I hope he is watching because I'm wearing his victory hat, the Donald Trump version, Stars and Stripes. But so I got my truck 2 weeks ago, Monday, and it's got 3,400 miles on it. And
have you figured out a way to bypass that seatbelt yet?
I did. Yeah, I figured that out. Actually, I didn't. My sons-in-law were riding with me to the dealer event, and I was complaining about it. And shoot, within 10 minutes, they had it figured out. Probably 5 minutes. Corey YouTubed it or did a search on YouTube of how to do it, and then he hits a few buttons on my dash, and
so it is a setting then?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, next one's up on the screen for you.
This one's from our buddy Ray Miller from Burton, Ohio. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Don, you have talked about your farm having 5 great up-and-comer bucks on it, the best crop you have ever had. With that, what do you think your chances are of having a 200-incher and or 2 200s this fall? And did you ever dream that you could have a legitimate shot at killing 2 200-inchers in the same fall? I don't think this has ever been done. Personally, I think this could become a reality, but..." Your screen switched, Terry.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Hang on.
You want me to start over on that one?
Technical difficulties. Nah. We just we roll with the punches.
Just roll with it. Okay, it says, personally, I think this could become a reality, but have you ever thought of this? Thank you, God bless, and remember your own words. Dream big because God's reality is bigger than your dreams. Well, to answer your question, yeah, there was the year I shot Smokey and Trump. I knew both those bucks were right on the verge, and Trump didn't quite make it. He was a few inches short, but I came close that year. The odds of me having even one 200-incher this fall are probably, I'll give it odds of 20%. It's probably 80% that there won't be a 200. The more time goes on, the more I realize how rare those kind of bucks are. And I've been blessed to have 2 of them on this farm. I do think that the day's coming when there'll be another one here, simply because if I see any buck here that I think could even remotely has a chance to do it, I'm going to let him go, and I'm going to let him go to at least 6. A good example is Babe this past season, who was bigger at 5 than he was at 6. If you'd have seen that buck at 5, with the 5x5 main frame and the stickers on both G2s and both G3s, I thought that buck had a chance, but he didn't do it. So, I got some good up-and-comers, but the odds of any one of those bucks making 200 inches is not very good. And the odds of 2 of them doing it in the same year, I'd hate to guess what the odds are of that. I'd say less than 1%. But, yeah, who knows? God's reality is bigger than my imagination, so it might happen, but I'm certainly not counting on it.
It'd be a good problem to have, wouldn't it?
Well, it is. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep. All right. Move on to the third question.
This one comes from Adam Dawson from Springport, Indiana. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Last season, I planted approximately 3/4 of an acre of real-world Gen 2 soybeans. I planted almost the whole bag, but maybe 5 pounds. The deer loved them, but they had them gone by mid-October. I also planted approximately 3/4 of an acre with Deadly Dozen and mixed my leftover beans with it for a fall plot. This is all in one plot, so about 1.5 acres total. My question is, would I be better off planting it all in beans or all just in Deadly Dozen, or what would you guys recommend? The deer really like the Deadly Dozen, and my oldest daughter, Chandler, was able to take her first deer in the Deadly Dozen plot. Thank you both very much for all the help and information you guys give out. It is very helpful to guys just getting started with food plots and managing land. Well, Adam, I think that, I preach diversity of food sources a lot, and I think I relate to other hunters who have a similar situation as me, that they have multiple plots, they have plenty of acreage, and sometimes my answers and my advice, I kind of overlook the guys who may be limited to one small plot and don't have the acreage or the tools or whatever that equipment that I have. And I want to try to do better at, remembering everybody and answering questions in such a way that everybody can relate to it. And, in your situation, you've got one plot, about an acre and a half. I think there's a lot of garbage out there, garbage information about food plots, where people are, planting multiple things in the plot. They're using various screening products to break up the plot. And in doing so, they're utilizing plot acreage that could be in food instead of these screens, dividing it into little sections. To answer your question, yeah, I would put the entire 1.5 acres in the same crop, whatever it is. I would start with soybeans and see what kind of a stand you have. And when it gets to late summer, if you don't have a good stand of soybeans because of browse pressure, well, then you just work it up and you plant your Deadly Dozen, and you haven't lost anything. You've been feeding the deer all summer at that plot, and they're getting used to coming to that plot for food, and you just convert it over to Deadly Dozen, and you got something to get you through the fall. But I think there's a lot of information out there where guys are making it more difficult than it really is. Just provide the most food that you can on the limited acreage that you have, and don't be worrying about breaking it up, having both greens and grains or whatever. Just think about volume of food. What can you plant to provide the deer the most volume of food?
I would rather one person put in one plot and commit to one product than have little bitty micro plots all over their property that would give deer options to go to different places. And I don't know. I've just gotten to the point that I don't even like having a food source on the property that I can't hunt. And I don't like multiple food sources because then I don't know which one to go to. So,
yep. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a couple, but I'm a big fan of fewer but bigger plots. If you got multiple plots, they should be set up so that they are hunted with different winds.
But yeah, I mean, everybody always looks at overbrowsed soybean field as a failure. It's not a failure. You attracted those deer onto your property the whole spring and summer. Wherever it's overbrowsed, just put in a secondary plot. You basically used your soybeans worked as like soil charge. You put nitrogen in your soil with it being a legume. Mm-hmm. You fed the deer a high protein type food. Just whatever's not there that doesn't have pods on it, till it under, mow it, and put in a fall plot. You can even always go in and put oats or plot topper over your standing beans to grow a secondary plot after they dry down.
And also, if you want to try soybeans, up the seeding rate. We recommend 50 pounds an acre, but that's an acre that's getting real light browse pressure. On my plots, I'm typically planting 60 pounds an acre, just a little over that. I don't have tremendous browse pressure, but you can literally plant over 100 pounds per acre, and it'll be fine. You're going to get the same grain yield with that as you will 50 pounds an acre. Soybeans are not like turnips, where you can't crowd them. Soybeans are going to produce based on the space they're given, and you go out there with 100 pounds an acre and a deer browse some of them off, a lot of times you can still get a good crop.
Yeah, I do about 80 pounds an acre just because of the amount of turkeys they pluck so many of them out of the ground. So just up your seed rate. Good advice.
The next one comes from Jake Justice. from Beaver Creek, Ohio. It says, "Hi, Don. The last several years I've run a trail camera back in my sanctuary on a ditch crossing where two logging roads come together. I always hang that camera in late August, and I pull it after rifle season. It gives great intel on what bucks are living on my farm daily and which ones show up during the rut. Is this too much human intrusion? I hate to give up the intel, but recognize that any disturbance is not ideal. Thank you, Jake." Well, Jake, I think that depending on the layout and all that, it's probably not too much human intrusion because you're going in August. The thing of it is, two things to remember. One, you need to hide that camera. If that camera is spooking deer, then yeah, it is too much intrusion. But if you've got that camera up 10 feet off the ground, pointed down, deer are not detecting that camera, then I don't think it's too bad. You're going in August, you're 2 months ahead of the hunting season, or at least a month. And if you're doing that in such a way the deer aren't detecting your camera, I don't think that's such a big deal. But, the thing of it is, most deer hunters do not have the willpower to stay out and not check that camera. They'll put it in, let's say in August like you're doing. Come the 1st of November, their rut vacation is getting ready to start, and they just got to know what's on that camera. And so they run in and they check that camera, and they put human intrusion on that property right before they're going to really start hunting it hard. So it's the willpower, and that camera is just a temptation for human intrusion. And some of us have the willpower to stay out because we've learned things the hard way, and some people just can't do it. And in that case, they're better off not even having it than to put it in there.
Yeah, so we're making the assumption when he says we put it out in August and pull it after rifle, he's not going in to check that card.
Right.
So, two trips in a year, probably manageable. All right, and put the next one up on the screen. Computer's a little slow tonight.
This one comes from Sam Lowe from Gray, Georgia. It says, "Dear Don and Terry, I'd first like to say thanks for this platform and all you do for Christian outdoors. I have two questions. First is, if a deer use the gland in their eye to detect sunlight for rut, why is the rut different in areas all over the country? Mine mirrors yours in the Midwest here in central Georgia, but one state over in Alabama, it's in January. Just wondering your thoughts. Second question is, you didn't kill your first 200-inch buck until 2004. You always say to be blessed, be a blessing. And since then, you went above and beyond for people all over the country with your consulting business. Do you think you're being blessed on behalf of those of your more recent bucks have come more frequently? Thanks for all you both do for the outdoors. Also, I have been praying for both you and Terry on behalf of your daughter and his mom. God bless, Sam Lowe." Sam, first off, thank you for the prayers. Terry and I both appreciate that, and I hope you and all the listeners will continue to pray for Terry's mom and my daughter. To answer your questions, the pineal gland in the deer's eye, triggers when that doe is going to come in heat, but the example you use has to do with deer that were relocated years ago, when states were trying to populate white-tailed deer in their state, and they were live trapping deer from other states and bringing them in. That's why the rut varies. I've heard Dr. Strickland talk about that, and how even in one state, different regions of one state, the rut timing can vary because deer were brought into that state years ago from different states. So, Texas, for example, the rut's primarily in January. So if those deer are relocated to wherever, they're still going to rut in January. And Midwest deer's typically in November. You can relocate them to the south. They're still going to rut in November. And that's why your deer in Georgia are rutting in November. It's because of, where they originated from. Second question. What was the second question? Oh, it was about being blessed, shooting those 200-inch deer more frequently. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. I think that I do think that God has blessed me in my deer hunting. I'd like to think it's because he approves of the way I'm using my platform, although I'm sure there's days that he's probably up there shaking his head. But, the one issue I have with your submission is you say that I've been a blessing to others because I've traveled around the country consulting. And actually, that's been a blessing to me, probably more than my clients. I'm sure I've helped a lot of those clients kill the buck of their dreams and the biggest buck of their life, but it's also been a blessing to me in multiple ways. It's been real satisfying, to get those text, emails, whatever, when a client's showing you pictures of the giant buck he killed. It's also been a blessing financially. I chased my dream of making a living through deer hunting for decades before it finally became reality. And it built over time. And I literally was in my mid-50s before I was making my entire living through the outdoors somehow, through various ventures, one of those being the consulting. But, I listened to a pretty good sermon today. It really wasn't a sermon, it was a podcast that Brent Henderson was on. He was a guest on someone else's podcast. But they were talking about how we use our platforms. And they actually was talking about a football player. And the football player said, I'm not put on this earth to play football. I was put on this earth to share the good news of Jesus Christ with others. Football just happens to be the platform that God gave me to do that. And I think that's a very good way of putting it. My purpose is not killing big deer. I think my purpose is reaching lost deer hunters. And, if killing big deer gets me the attention of other deer hunters and I'm using that for good, then I'm guessing God probably honors that. So, I don't know. I guess one day I'll ask him when I get to heaven. What's your take on that, Terry?
I don't think we can negotiate or leverage God's blessing. I think that no matter what we do, if we are true servant leaders, like Christ asked us to be through discipleship, that can be done through golf or fishing or car shows or motorcycle rides, coaching, whatever activity you're doing. I think that's what we're called to do is minister and, serve others. It's like that's a great analogy. I just sent me a text today about the podcast, and I didn't have a chance to listen to it yet. But I think that's a great analogy. Is we were called to follow Jesus, and and you think about the disciples in the New Testament. Matthew was basically a tax collector back then. A mafia guy that went out and collected. They were bad dudes, and you had fishermen, and you had just ordinary people, and God used them to start the church. And what we know as the modern day church back then. So to say that he can't use two redneck guys that say probably stuff we shouldn't have while and act like we shouldn't have and get over defensive when people hate on us and argue with each other and other people. We should say that he can't use us for bigger things. I think is cutting short how much faith he has in us, even though we don't have ourselves.
And I think a lot of times we like to think of it as God's up there playing let's make a deal. Okay, you're using your platform the way I want you to, so here's a big deer. Or if you're a football player, Yeah, I like the way you're using your platform, so I'm going to send you to the Super Bowl. And it doesn't work like that at all. You know, some of the most devout Christians I know, a good example is my good friend Steve Lackmeyer. Um, you talk about a guy that walks it. He doesn't just talk it; he walks it every day of his life. And I don't know of another friend that's had more turmoil in his life than Steve. Just all kinds of things. Lost his wife, lost his daughter. His son is disabled very seriously. Had a business that failed. Had another business where a young man was killed. Kind of ruined that business. But yet Steve, every day, he's like Job in the Bible. The devil keeps throwing things at him, but Steve just keeps standing back up and, walking the walk of faith, stronger today than he ever has. So it makes no sense to think that, Steve's faith makes mine look pathetic. And to think that God would bless me because of what I'm doing and he wouldn't bless Steve, it just doesn't make any sense. And I think we need to get off of this idea that God's up there playing let's make a deal. And, hey, I've been to church every week for the last year. God's going to bless me. It's just a matter of time before I go to the mailbox and look in there and I've got a bunch of money waiting for me or something. It just doesn't work that way.
You know, the more families we talk to and work with Lester's Feet, that's one of the biggest challenges that parents have. You know, we see our kids sick or we see our kid in pain, we feel hopeless. You know, but we tend to say, God, do this, heal my kid, and I will do this, like it's a negotiating thing. And it's not that with malicious intent by any means. It's just trying to deal with the grief of the situation. And you know, the bottom line is if we had to negotiate salvation or what we've been blessed with, we'd come up on the short end of the deal every single time because we are not worthy of any of it. And that's what grace is really about. It's not about negotiating or you give me something, I give you something. It's about the willingness to send your son to die for every one of us for salvation and have a relationship with him. That's not negotiating or you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And unfortunately, bad things happen to great people. But at the end of the day, no matter what happens, we're blessed far beyond wherever deserved because we're at the end of the day, we're all sinners.
And our reward is not on this earth. You know, God's not sending big deer my way as a reward. Our reward is in heaven. It's not on this earth whatsoever.
Well, we got off on a sermon tangent this week. So,
well, we probably needed to. Make up for the purple-haired freak show at the dealer event last week.
Get your bedroom yet?
I got it right here in my game room. So looking at it right now, I should have had it here in front of me.
I knew Robin was not going to let that hang up in her bedroom.
No, there was no way. She didn't even want it in her kitchen. She said, "Get it out of here." Jeff Bueltel. I hope I said your name right, Jeff, from Stendal, Indiana, sent the next question. He says, "Good morning. I love listening to the podcast and greatly respect the stance the two of you take on your faith and morals. My question is on fruit trees. A couple of years ago, you did a video on the top 3 trees for deer, Chinese chestnuts, pear, and persimmon. And in your opinion, apple trees were overrated due to the higher maintenance. Has your opinion changed now that you have visited the orchard at Ohio and Gingrich Tree Farm is coming out with the new varieties? I started listening to your podcast in October of 2023, and as of this morning, I am on episode 199. Thanks for all you do." Jeff, I really haven't changed my stance. I think apples are great for deer. In fact, I picked up a load of apple trees when I was out in Pennsylvania at Blue Hill Wildlife Nursery. I just got a bunch from Gingrich Tree Farm the other day and planted as well. I'm probably going to end up planting about 35, 40 apple trees this year. I'm also going to be planting some pears and persimmons. I was just rating them on how I've seen the deer prefer them. I think the deer prefer chestnuts, pears, and persimmons over apples, but they certainly love apples. I've got a number of apple trees on my farm right now. I'd hate to guess how many, in about 4 different locations. And I can tell you that in the fall, when those apples are ripe and dropping, you don't see many apples on the ground. Those deer clean them up about as fast as they fall. So deer absolutely love apples. It's just that I think they might, from my experience, they probably like those other fruits just a little bit better.
Yes. All right. Well, that's the last question for tonight. We breezed those pretty well. I got one request, but before we do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for me. I'm probably going to bed when we get off of here after being gone for 9 days.
Well, I know the power of prayer, and I know how people have rallied around Andrea and Lester's Feet, especially as we started the new Andrea Hamilton Fund, and we're hoping that, that's going to be a blessing to so many more families. But I did learn of a situation today that is kind of near and dear to my heart. On the podcast about 2 years ago, I mentioned that there was a college kid that was the son of one of my best friends that was injured really bad in a car accident in Illinois. And, we rallied around that family, helped them. His dad is one of my closest and dearest friends. But today we found out that his wife has a very, very rare and very serious form of cancer that they're not even sure how they're going to treat it. And it's already being discussed as quality of life discussions. And, just as they fought for the last year and a half to get their son back healthy again, then this hits them right on top of it. So I spent over an hour on the phone with him today. Probably going to be making a trip up to Chicago to sit with him. But if you guys could remember my friend Kevin and his wife Jen in your prayers, talk about really good people. That doesn't seem like the world's being fair right now. But I know in all things he's going to be glorified. But we could really use some prayers for the family right now. It would mean a lot.
Absolutely. We'll keep Kevin and his wife and his whole family in our prayers.
All right. Sorry to end on a bad note, but we're going to try right at the end of the closing, put the audio on the audio platforms up from the Legends Roundtable. It was a fun event. I got pictures ordered for all the guys. I'm going to have them framed and mail them to everybody. Pretty special event, though, to have all of you guys on the stage at the same time. I should have actually gotten out of the picture at the just had you guys in it, but it's humbling to be part of it, and hopefully next year they allow more time and really dive into a lot of stuff. We'll just have to have a mute button up there for the Wenzels so they don't spend 12 minutes introducing themselves.
Yeah. Well, you're a legend as well, Terry. You was right there where you needed to be.
Well, take care, everyone. Thanks for the support.
God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.